never believed in destiny. Not until the day it forced me to wear my sister's wedding dress. It's strange how one moment can rewrite the rest of your life. One yes said in panic, one veil pulled over trembling lips. And suddenly, you're a wife to a stranger. Before I begin, please, if you've ever believed that love can bloom even in the most impossible circumstances, then stay till the end. Like this video, subscribe, and let me take you through the story that changed everything I thought I knew about love, betrayal, and fate. Because this is how I, a quiet, ordinary woman, ended up marrying a stranger in my sister's place, and how that stranger turned out to be a passionate billionaire who taught me what it means to be seen. My sister, Aisha, was the kind of woman people noticed without her trying. Beautiful, charming, reckless, the kind of beauty that always believed rules were meant for others. I was the opposite, the quieter one, the responsible one, the one who cleaned up her messes without ever being asked. So when she ran away, the night before her wedding, she didn't even have to ask me to fix it. Our parents were frantic. The guests were arriving the next morning. The groom's family, influential, proud, the kind who value honor above all else, were expecting a perfect ceremony. And in that chaos, my mother's trembling hand found mine. "Please," she whispered. "You're the only one who can save us." I remember the weight of that dress as it was draped over me. The smell of jasmine from Aisha's bouquet, the reflection in the mirror. Not me, but someone pretending to be someone else. I wanted to say no. I wanted to scream that it wasn't fair, but my father's eyes, full of heartbreak and shame, silenced me. And so, I walked down that aisle, toward a man whose name I barely knew, Rayan Malik, the heir to a business empire, tall, cold, distant. A man who didn't smile when I approached, only nodded slightly, as if sealing a transaction rather than a marriage. He didn't notice the difference. Or maybe he didn't care. Our vows were spoken, our hands joined, and by evening, I was Mrs. Rayan Malik, the bride who wasn't meant to be. The first night was silent. He stood by the window, his phone glowing against his sharp profile, ignoring me completely. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, too calm. "You'll have your own space in this house. Don't expect more. I thought it was cruel, but I accepted it. After all, I wasn't meant to be there." Days passed. He barely looked at me. He worked late, traveled often, and when he was home, he spoke little. I kept myself busy, helping the house staff, reading, sitting quietly in the garden as the wind carried whispers of a life that didn't belong to me. But one night, everything changed. It was raining hard. The kind of rain that silences cities. He came home soaked, furious, and when he saw me waiting with a towel, his eyes softened, just a fraction. He took it, murmured a thank you, and for the first time, our hands brushed. I don't know what made him pause. Maybe it was the way I didn't flinch. Maybe it was the realization that I wasn't the woman he thought he married. That night, over a cup of tea, he asked quietly, "Why do you never speak unless spoken to?" I smiled faintly, because silence doesn't lie. He looked at me, really looked at me, and something in his gaze shifted. From that night onward, something began to change. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, he started noticing me. How I read poetry late at night, how I hummed old songs while watering the plants, how I never asked him where he went or who he was with. One morning, he asked if I wanted to accompany him to a charity gala. I refused at first, unsure how to face the world with a lie draped around me, but he insisted, gently. That evening, as I walked beside him in a simple gown, I felt every eye on me. Not because I was beautiful, but because he couldn't stop looking at me. His hand brushed mine once, twice, then stayed. I felt something bloom inside me. Something dangerous. But the truth has a cruel way of surfacing. Because a week later, my sister came back. Standing at the gate, dressed in guilt and desperation, she demanded to see her husband, and that was the moment everything shattered. When I saw Aisha standing at the gate that morning, I felt time freeze. Her face, once radiant and full of mischief, looked pale, her eyes sunken, her expression trembling between guilt and arrogance. And when her gaze fell on me, wearing the ring that should have been hers, something inside her eyes flickered. Shock. Then fury. Rayan was in the courtyard speaking to his driver. When he turned and saw her, he froze too. For a heartbeat, there was complete silence. 3 souls trapped in the consequences of one lie. Aisha broke it first. "Rayan," she said, voice quivering. "It's me, I came back." He didn't answer. His jaw tightened, his hands folded behind his back. Then very slowly he looked at me. I lowered my gaze. I couldn't bear it. The truth was pouring out of my chest, loud and wild, begging to be heard. But all I could whisper was, "I'll explain." Rayan walked away. And that night, when the storm returned, I found myself standing outside his study, watching the man I'd grown to care for burn with quiet anger. He didn't shout. He didn't break anything. He just said, "So you lied. You let me believe you were her." I wanted to defend myself, to tell him it wasn't my choice, that I'd done it for my parents, that I'd been terrified. But all that came out was silence. Finally, I whispered, "Would you have married me if you knew the truth?" He looked at me for a long time, his voice breaking the air like a blade. "I don't know, but you should have let me decide." Those words, they pierced deeper than anger ever could. The days after that were heavy, too quiet. Aisha stayed with our parents, insisting she could fix things, but Rayan refused to see her. I could feel the distance growing, like a sea rising between us. He stopped coming home early, stopped meeting my eyes, but what hurt most was that I missed him, missed the sound of his footsteps, the smell of his cologne, the way he'd linger at the door before leaving, as if something held him back. And then, one morning I found the envelope. It was on the dining table, sealed neatly with my name written in his sharp handwriting. Inside, divorce papers, no words, no explanation, just finality. I signed them quietly, tears blurring the ink. I didn't blame him, not really. Maybe he was right. Maybe our entire beginning was a lie too heavy to bear. So I packed my things and left the house without a word. The city felt different when you've lost something you never knew you'd have. I found a small apartment on the edge of town, got a job at a design firm, and began to build myself again, brick by trembling brick. For the first time in years, I wasn't someone's sister, someone's savior, someone's stand-in. I was just me. And oddly enough, it felt freeing. But freedom has its price, because every night when I closed my eyes, I saw him, his calm, distant eyes that once held warmth. And I wondered if he ever thought of me too. Months passed. I grew stronger, sharper, quieter. My work began to get noticed. I earned promotions, made friends, even smiled more. Then one afternoon, as I was leaving the office, a sleek black car stopped in front of me. A familiar voice, deep, steady, said, "You've changed." It was Rayan. He looked the same, elegant, composed. But there was something new in his eyes. Regret. He didn't ask to come inside. He didn't demand answers. He simply handed me a small envelope. Inside was a key and a note. "There's something I need you to see." I didn't want to go. Every instinct told me to throw that key away, to protect the peace I'd built. But curiosity, and maybe a small dangerous hope, pulled me back to that mansion. When I entered, everything was the same, except for the gallery on the second floor. He'd filled it with paintings. My paintings, sketches I'd made months ago, some I'd thrown away, some I'd never shown him, and beneath them, a small plaque. "To the woman who taught me truth through silence." I turned, and there he was. He walked toward me slowly, his voice low. I was angry because I felt betrayed. But I was wrong. "You didn't steal a life. You saved one." He paused. "I know now that Aisha was never meant to be my wife. It was always you. Every day since you left, I've known it. I wanted to believe him. But belief isn't simple when your heart's been torn open before." So I said quietly, "Then why didn't you come sooner?" He looked down, his jaw trembling. because I needed to become someone worthy of asking for forgiveness. Silence hung between us, soft, fragile. And then I walked away, not out of anger, not out of hate, but because sometimes peace doesn't come from holding on. It comes from letting go with grace. That night, as I stood by my apartment window, the city lights shimmering like fallen stars, I realized something. Love doesn't always end with a happy ending. Sometimes it ends with self-respect, but fate had one more twist waiting for me. I thought that was the end of our story. Me, standing by the window with my quiet peace, and him. A memory I had learned to forgive, but not to return to. But life, as I've learned, never really closes a chapter until it's ready. 2 years passed. 2 years of healing, of rebuilding, of finding beauty in solitude. My work had grown. The small firm I joined had turned into something bigger, and by some strange turn of destiny, I was now leading a design project for a new luxury housing development. A client's name appeared on the contract. Rayon Holdings. My heart didn't shatter this time. It simply stirred, like a calm lake remembering the weight of an old stone. The day I walked into the meeting room, I carried myself with a stillness that only comes from pain turned into power. He stood there, older, softer around the eyes, the arrogance replaced by something gentler. "Hello, Zara," he said, his voice calm. I smiled, the kind of smile that hides entire chapters behind it. "Mr. Rayon, long time." He hesitated, then said, "You look happy." "I am." And I meant it. The meeting was professional, the air thick but controlled. I spoke with precision, with clarity, with confidence. The woman he once knew would have stumbled, searched for words, but not me. Not anymore. After the meeting, as I gathered my things, he said softly, "Can I show you something?" I wanted to say no, but something, maybe closure, maybe curiosity, made me follow him. He led me to the terrace overlooking the entire city. The skyline shimmered in gold light. "This project," he said quietly, "I started it the month you left. I wanted to build something beautiful from the ruins I created, something that reminded me what I lost." I turned to look at him. His eyes met mine, unguarded this time. "No more lies," he said. "No more walls. I just wanted to thank you for teaching me what love actually means. You didn't humiliate me when you could have. You didn't fight or seek revenge. You walked away. And that broke me more than anger ever could." His voice trembled. Just a little. Enough to let me see the truth behind the man's strength. He continued, "You deserved a man who chose you first. Not by accident, not by confusion. And I wasn't that man then." He paused. "But maybe I am now." For a long moment, I said nothing. I looked at him. This man who had once believed my silence was deceit, who now stood in that same silence, waiting for forgiveness. And I realized something. Forgiveness wasn't about him anymore. It was about freeing me. So I said softly, "I forgive you, Rayon. But not for us. For me. For my peace." He nodded, eyes glistening. "That's enough." We stood there, two, souls who had finally reached the end of a storm. Not as lovers, not as enemies, but as people who had learned. Later that evening, I walked through the nearly finished villas of the project. Beautiful, strong, filled with light. And for a strange moment, I saw myself in them. Built from ruins, still standing, still radiant. As I passed the final house, something caught my eye. On the gate, a small brass plaque read, "Villa Zara, for the woman who turned pain into art." I stopped in my tracks. My throat tightened. My chest ached. But it wasn't sadness. It was gratitude. Not for the love we lost, but for the woman I'd become because of it. That night, I wrote in my journal, "Sometimes, the people who break you are the same ones who teach you how to rebuild." And maybe, just maybe, that's what love was meant to do all along. When I closed the book, I smiled. Because I finally understood. I didn't need to be anyone's substitute, anyone's savior, or anyone's second choice. I was enough, always had been. And as the city lights flickered outside my window, I whispered softly, not to him, but to the woman in the mirror, "You did it. You made it through."